All right, good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting of the Boston Art Commission. My name is Karen Goodfellow, and I'm the Director of Public Art in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. And in that capacity, I'm also the Director of the Boston Art Commission. Please update your names and pronouns and make sure that you are muted. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting virtually. As a reminder, this was extended until 2025 to ensure public access to the deliberations of the Art Commission. The public can join this meeting through telephone and video conferencing. For those of you with us today, this meeting is being recorded and closed captioning is available. You can access it at the bottom of the screen. If you have trouble locating the button, please chat us for assistance. The Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture and the Boston Art Commission believe that public art is any artwork installed in publicly accessible spaces where they can be experienced by everyone for free. We engage in discussions about public art in Boston in order to foster the creation and collection of artworks that reflect the people, ideas, histories, and futures of Boston, which is located on the traditional homeland of the Massachusetts people and the neighboring Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples. We acknowledge the atrocities committed against Indigenous peoples, all of the communities that have been subsequently harmed, and the way these communities and the Indigenous peoples represented in the city's residents, in addition to those in the diaspora. We also recognize that Boston exists as a result of the forced labor and economic extraction from enslaved African Americans. For transparency and community input, artworks proposed for City of Boston property are reviewed and discussed at public meetings of the BAC on a regular, usually monthly basis. Working together with the Public Art Team and the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, the BAC is an independent board composed of 2 ex officio and 7 volunteer community members appointed by the Mayor. The BAC has exclusive authority to approve and commission artworks intended to be added to the city's collection or be placed on city property. Our meetings are generally held on the 2nd Tuesday of every month, and we hope you'll continue to join us. Our team facilitates the Boston Art Commission public meetings and manages all phases, daily operations, and duties related to public art projects cited on or proposed for city property in collaboration with the Art Commission, community members, and colleagues at the City of Boston. And helping to facilitate this meeting tonight is Sarah Rodrigo. I think it's just the 2 of us tonight. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us at the email address Sarah just provided in the chat. With that, I will pass to Chair Pasnick.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Welcome, everyone. I'm calling this public hearing to order at 4:35 p.m. Today, the Boston Art Commission is holding our monthly public meeting. I'll take roll call now to confirm a quorum. After I state your name, commissioners, please say here. I think that Aqua is not here. Camilo?
Here.
John?
Here.
Michael?
Here.
Cara?
Here.
And I think Brian. Bob,
Yeah.
I don't think Bob is here, but Brian, yes. Okay,
Yeah,
and
here.
Kim, I believe, is not here as well. Okay, so we do have a quorum. Thank you, everyone. The first order of business is to, well, first you'll see the agenda for today, which is publicly posted on the city's website, boston.gov. We'll review the meeting minutes from the April 11th meeting of the Boston Art Commission. Are there any comments or modifications any commissioner would like to make at this time? Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I'd like to make a motion.
Make a motion to accept the April 11th minutes.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Camila,
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. You guys are a good team. I'll read off your names, and if you are in agreement with the motion, please say yes. Camilo?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Cara?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, so the motion passes. I think we will now turn the agenda over to Karen for her director's report.
We have 2 presentations for review today. Initially, we had a third. Oh, looks like Kim's joining us. Maybe we can note that Kim's joined at 4:37. Sorry, we have 2 presentations for review today. Initially, we had a 3rd presentation, but the site turned out to be private property. So the 2 projects presenting are Portraits of Pride, a short-term installation on City Hall Plaza of photographs by John Huet, proposed by John Dulin, and Harvest Murals program with 2 long-term murals for East Boston, presented by Matt Pollock of Harbor Arts. And after that, after the public art presentations, we'll be discussing and potentially voting on the chair and vice chair for this commission. And a few updates about the work that we're doing across the city in public art. We're excited to share that the midpoint of fabrication images of the Frederick Douglass Memorial Journey of My Soul by Mario Chiodo are ready to be shared, and you can see some of them up here. This work is after a drawing by Paul Goodnight. In the photographs at the right, you can see starting clockwise from the top left. In wax, the portrait of Lewis Henry Douglass, the eldest son of Douglass and his first wife, who served as a sergeant major in the Massachusetts 54th Regiment. The raw bronze casting of the head and shoulders of Frederick Douglass from 2 different angles, and the raw bronze casting of the head and shoulders of Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, who's a suffragist. In the coming months, all of the castings will be completed and the pieces welded together, then patinaed in preparation for their installation either this fall or early next spring. Limmer Chief Fraser and the project team for the new artwork for Fire Station 42 are finalizing the artwork design and anticipate presenting to the commission in June. The Coconut Grove Memorial Project Emergent Memory by Recite for Statler Park and back in Bay Village is progressing quickly through final design, and at the right you can see images of the design in development. They're also hoping to present at the June meeting. Priscilla de Carvalho is currently working on designs for 3 potential sites at the Adams Street Library, including 2 newly proposed interior and exterior sites that better complement her style and past work. Jenny Sabin is planning her final 2 workshops with Boston Poet Laureate Portia Olivola and poet Liz Bradfeld. Project manager Amber Torres will be presenting the project for HUD approval on May 18th, alongside project consultant Kathy Carton and others from the Mayor's Office of Housing, POA, and the Boston Housing Authority. Copley contracts are being finalized and artists are gearing up for preliminary design. Paint box call is opening at the end of the month, and many of the boxes this year will be located in Mattapan, Hyde Park, and Rosendale. So please spread the word to any artists you know in the area. And we're also releasing a call to artists for figurative works for 26 Court Street in the near future. We will finalize the date for that soon. And another call to artists will be released later this summer for a sculpture project at the corner of Ruggles and Tremont. And we'll be releasing a call for a mural and 2D artists later this summer in collaboration with Street Theory. So we have a lot of new projects that will be coming your way. The Boston Massacre Medallion outside of Old City Hall has been removed for repair and conservation for the outside the old State House. You can see a photo of the site on the right side of your screen. The space where the ring sits was filled with compressed gravel by Daedalus, and we collaborated with Revolutionary Spaces to create and install informational signage. The ring will be reinstalled in late May or early June. We are working on procuring services for a number of mural restorations across the city, which we hope to share more about at our next meeting. We've released requests for quotes for 17 conservation and cleaning projects across the city, with work to be completed this spring and summer, including works in East Boston, Roxbury, the North End, downtown, Dorchester, and Charlestown. There have been a number of incidences of vandalism recently, including silver marker on the Mayor Curley bronze double portrait, chalk doodles on the Mayor Collins monument on Comab Mall, which you can see in the photo on the lower left or upper right, and fecal matter smeared on both the John Boyle O'Reilly monument in the Fenway and the Alexander Hamilton monument on Comab Mall in Back Bay. Additionally, Tales of an Ancient Face by Brian B. Young in Chinatown was vandalized for the third time since its installation. We expect that the public will sometimes interact in a negative way with public art, and thankfully most of the recent incidents were very easily remedied. However, some of them, like the one on Brian B. Young's artwork, are more difficult to address and repair, and we're going to work with the cities, with partners at the city to find a lasting solution, and are continuing to think through our conservation work and the house doctor contract that we have previously had. And lastly, you can see in photos to the far right, there's been some skateboarding damage to the benches on the 1965 Freedom Plaza, and we're working with Parks, Mass Design, and other stakeholders to repair the damage and strategize on successful preventative strategies on that. And I'll pass
Okay,
it back
thanks,
to
Karen,
Mark.
for that update. Thanks for the update. There seems like there's some good stuff coming our way, but also I'm sorry to see all of these acts of vandalism on the works. I hope we can repair them quickly. We'll now move on to the item on the agenda for review, public testimony, and commission vote. On this slide, you can see how you can participate in today's meeting. If you have technical difficulties, you can ask questions in the chat and a member of staff will help you. After presentations and questions from the commission, we may invite public testimony. If you'd like to participate, you can press the raise your hand icon and staff will put you in a digital line for comment. You can also let staff know you have a question in the chat. If you're calling in, press *9 to raise your hand. Please remember to keep your comments on topic and brief. Our goal is to make this meeting a good experience for all so the community members feel comfortable sharing their feedback and questions. Be mindful of and respectful of other people's time when speaking so that other participants feel comfortable adding their comments. You could submit longer written testimony to bac@boston.gov. While you may disagree with other attendees' testimony, you may not interrupt them during their allotted time. Please keep questions and comments project specific. If you're called on, please state your name, title, and if relevant, program or organization. Our first presentation for review today is for Portraits of Pride, a short-term installation of large format photographs on City Hall Plaza. Sarah will introduce the project. Sarah?
Thank you, Chair. You all may remember approving Portraits of Pride for Boston Common last summer. It was sited on the Common for about a month, and we're very excited to welcome them back again tonight for a new location, new installation this summer on City Hall Plaza. Jean Delin is here to present. Welcome, Jean.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm very pleased to be back here presenting in front of you, but this time to have Portraits of Pride on City Hall Plaza. I'm very excited about it because last year the plaza, as you may know, was under renovation, and now that it's up and open to the public, the exhibit will be coming on City Hall Plaza. Next slide. So just a little background for those of you who may not remember or don't know enough about the project, but Portraits of Pride is a large-scale photography exhibition of LGBTQ people, leaders, activists, and people in Boston who have a long history of working in the LGBTQ advocacy sector or LGBTQ rights, or that are also committed to LGBTQ and equality. I like to say Greater Boston because last year, but also this year, there are people who are featured in it who lives in Cambridge, but work in Boston, or work in Boston, live somewhere else, but it's really connected in the Greater Boston area. This year, we will feature 23 portraits. Last year, it was only 22. We've added one more. And if you wonder about the number, it's just the matter of the year, 2022, 2023, just going with that order. It will be in June. It will be on City Hall Plaza. Next slide. The photographer is still the same, John Huet, who was with me last year, but he's actually at the hospital now, doctor's appointment that he couldn't miss. So I'm the only person here, but John is the photographer who takes the pictures, do the background work of editing them, and working on the format so that they can be printed on such a large scale. And then I take on really directing the photo shoot, perhaps picking locations and colors, And then also me and him and some other folks have a discussion around which picture we pick from the 375 we take on each photo shoot. This is really my bio, which is so tedious, and the work I've done. I hate to read it, but I guess I'll just go by. I've done Portraits of Pride as a project, also documentary and rainbow tales, working with different institutions around the city of Boston. So really storytelling and arts and all around about LGBTQ people and LGBTQ rights. Next slide. And this is John Huet. He is a world-renowned photographer, has won multiple awards, including the Lucy Foundation International Photographer of the Year, and he has won that for many years. His works really focus on sports portraiture. So that's everyone from folks, athletes at Nike. He is one of the photographers for the Olympics, so always for the past 10 Olympics. So has been across the world photographing the Olympics and some of the athletes, but also does a lot of editorial work, Vogue magazine and Boston Improper, Boston Magazine, amongst many others. Thank you. So this year we have 23 portraits. All of them will be 8 feet tall. Last year they were installed on Boston Common, but this year they'll be on City Hall Plaza. I'm excited about that. The exhibition is really cross-generational. We have people from all age. We have young people. We have people that are still young, but have lived longer than me or longer than some of us on this call. We will also make the exhibition available online this year, so that if folks are not able to make it within the 30 days, they can still experience it online through their phone on an online platform that we're still building. So it's really about visibility, making sure it's accessible, it's there for the public, there's no admission fees, there's no barrier for them to see it any hour of the day. Yeah, next slide. This is a photo from last year's opening on the Boston Common. It was in October, somewhat of a little raining day, but this was our opening on the Boston Common. You can see some of the honorees taking pictures with their own portraits and the other visitors who came to see the opening of the show. Next slide. And this year on City Hall Plaza, where you see those purple, if my color coding is right, is where they will be installed. So we have some there on that main plaza, and that's circle where all the neighborhoods are engraved, and then some other ones on the right end of the plaza. This is where I was given by the folks who are responsible, Billy Dean, and also, I can't remember her name, but she handles all things plaza related. It might change based on when the stage moves. If there's space to bring everything in one corner, we could do that. And then I also understand there are some other activities that are being planned on the plaza this summer. So these pictures will be moved as needed for other activities to take place, especially around the stage area. Next slide. Again, the photographs are captured by John Huet. We will be installing. The hope is to do the installment on June 1st, so that it's the day it opens, that no one else gets to see it any other day. And then it will stay there until June 30th, which is the day we would deinstall. They are printed by the same company, Sign Center, out in Norwood, who prints for a lot of businesses in Boston. They print on some sort of non-adhesive fabric, nylon, who can sustain rain and the sun. It's really a hard fabric. There will be a total of 23 pictures, but 25 panels total, because 2 of them are literature about the exhibit. And since we'll be in 2 spaces, it makes sense to have at least one on that other end so folks know what they're looking at. And each of the panels will be attached to a wooden frame, and the wooden frames will be held by sandbags on the floor. If you look at the pictures at the bottom, you can see the 2 sandbags that were added last year. But then because of the wind, we had to add some more because they needed more weight. I don't predict that much wind in June, but we're still planning to add at least 4 sandbags so that we don't run into the issues we had last year. Some of the folks who are featured this year, we have Catherine D'Amato, who has been a champion for LGBTQ rights, currently serves as the president for the Boston Food Bank, Dr. Ken Mayer at Fenway Health, Gary Daffin, founder and longtime advocate who leads the multicultural LGBTQ organization. We have Candace, who is a performer, also work in the LGBTQ office. Rob Phelps, editor at Boston Magazine, also LGBTQ advocate. Jensen Wu, who works for GLAAD, the executive director for GLAAD, and Kaden as well. Kaden Hall works for GLAAD. Reverend Irene Monroe, longtime LGBTQ advocate, who also is a contributor to GBH Morning Edition, and sometimes with Jim and Marjorie as well. Just to name a few, because we have a total of about 26 people. So I thought it would be tedious to just list everybody's name. But I sent the link earlier today. I don't know if you've gotten the opportunity to review some of the photos, and they are still in the works. The photographer is still working on them. Next slide. Next one. These are the portraits from last year. So it's the same standards, but the one of this year is in a special link that I've submitted over for you all to review. So I don't know if you have any questions or if you all have been able to see them. But this year we've partnered with a number of institutions and people. We have Club Cafe, who is an LGBTQ entertainment establishment. They've been gracious enough to give us their space to conduct the photo shoot for many of the honorees, and then also working a lot with the LGBTQ office to make sure that folks knew of the exhibit and making sure that they would send us suggestions of people to be featured in it. And in the next slide, we also have a number of sponsors this year. Boston Arts and Culture is one of our sponsors, the City of Boston Arts and Culture. And we also expect a number of other corporate sponsors. These discussions are still happening. CBS Boston will be our media sponsor, covering the exhibit, interviews with some of the honorees and putting that on their platform. This morning, I heard back from another sponsor who will be supporting the exhibit. I guess I'll just say it, but it's really an organization that focuses on elevating tourism experience for Boston. It's called Meet Boston, the idea of meeting Boston. So they will also be joining as a sponsor. And we have some other corporate sponsors as well that we still having conversations with. So just like last year, I believe that we had Eastern Lake and State Street and some nonprofits and the Boston Foundation. So I think we're gonna land somewhere there with those and then some new ones as well. And now I'll just stop in case anyone has any questions that you want to go over or any thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Thank you also for putting this on each year and highlighting some members of our community that are taking leadership in advancing rights and other things. I do maybe have one beginning comment to make, which is I wonder about the placement on the plaza, whether any of them could be closer to one of the two streets. And I know that you can't answer that now, but it would maybe draw some people in. They seem to all be kind of central in the plaza and none of them addressing Congress Street so I'm just wondering if there's any way you could talk to the city about can some of those migrate or at least be positioned so that they're visible from the street?
Yeah, I share those sentiments as well. I mean, especially in the beginning, I had asked for something closer to the train station where folks could see it driving on Cambridge Street.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the closest we could get was the circle. Because I think there's still a fence around Cambridge Street and they're not sure when that will be removed. So that was the decision they came with.
Okay.
But I think with about 20 something days, if anything changes, property management will be, I believe, open to seeing what else can happen there.
Well, maybe some of it is just orienting the panels so that they are viewable from the street, or the Tea Head House is another. I agree with you. That would be great to have people walk out of the tea and see some of the. So it could just be a question of orientation too, that you see them a little bit from the distance, but that they're looking at, they're visible from those sites instead of the back of them or something.
Right. We'll
okay. Let me open it up to other comments from other commissioners.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for the presentation. And as Mark said, for your work on this project. I had a question about the framing stands. You said last year that because of wind, you added additional sandbags, and I'm just curious if that solved the problem for you. I know June likely won't be as windy, but there still might be some gusts of wind, and I was just curious about that solution.
It did, because one thing is we cannot anchor anything on the Boston Common. There's a parking lot right under. I think it's the same case for City Hall Plaza. I mean, it's millions of dollars of renovations. So I was told there's nothing can go in the ground, although that would have been the preferred option. But to answer your question, adding more sandbags did solve the problem, because the couple of them flew down, were knocked down by the wind. And I think it had to do with the weight, but then also the ground wasn't too level. It was kind of like this on some of them. So that gave the wind more power there. But we just added two more on each, making sure each one of them had 4, and then that allowed them to stay up. Although at some point, I don't know who or what kept, at some point, some of them ended up with like 2 or 3 sandbags. It looks like some folks help themselves with the sandbags, but it did solve the problem.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, any other comments or questions from commissioners?
I just have one. Just a question about what the reverse of the images look like. I'm just kind of wondering, if there's a way where something could be printed or something on the back. They just seem very kind of frontal, but I think they'll be experienced in the round on the plaza. And it would be interesting if there was kind of something to experience on all sides of that. So if you're approaching from the back, you can also experience something. I don't know if that's been a consideration.
It has, especially after the first one. So to answer the first question, in the back is just the rest of the material, which is white. It's in the back of it because the whole frame is wrapped. So even coming from the back, you just see this white thing standing. It's somewhat telling you come see something there. So it's somewhat of an invitation, but it's just so plain. The reason why we cannot add anything in the back is just sometimes with the sun position, they would sort of like conflict with each other. It would be the other one shadows to the other one. It wouldn't really be visible. But I've thought about it. I even thought about maybe we put another picture on the other side, so it will be less frames, but 2 pictures on each. But then once you put the light over it, the other pictures is still in the image, and it creates somewhat of a messy look to it, unfortunately. Unless we added some like solid material in the middle of the 2 pictures, that'll probably be something I'll work on for the next time around. Who knows?
Okay. Any other comments from commissioners?
I'm trying to remember from last year how we handle the corporate sponsors.
So last year, the way they were handled, they were written as part of the literature. We didn't have them having special logos or be attached to all of the frames. And the course of action is to do the same. They should just list them under the literature, typing their name instead of their logos.
So they'll be in the summary or description of the project.
Exactly, on one of those 2 main literature panels, not on each photo.
Okay.
All right. I think if that happened last year, we can go ahead with it this year. Does that make sense to you, Michael?
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're being consistent because I know that's an issue we've come across on many of installations, and just wanted to make sure we're being consistent with that.
Good. Okay. Any other commissioners? If not, I will see if any members of the public would like to make a comment. Hearing none, I think we could move to a motion. Would somebody like to make a motion? How about you, Brian?
Sure. I will make a motion to approve final design of Portraits of Pride by uh, John Dolan and artist John Huet.
Great, thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, John. So if you are in agreement with the motion, please say yes when I call your name. Camilo,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes,
Cara,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and Kim.
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. So the motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. And we look forward to seeing this on the plaza.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the review and for voting yes into it. I'm excited about it.
Okay, great. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Our next presentation for review is a long-term mural at or long-term murals at the two schools in East Boston. Sarah will introduce the project.
Thank you again, Chair. I'd like to welcome back Matt Pollock from Harbor Arts, part of the Harvest Murals team, to present two long-term mural projects for East Boston at two different schools. And these are the projects they're working on this year. I think one of the artists may be with us as well, but hand it over to Matt. Matt? Can you unmute?
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone. Thanks to the BAC for the time and opportunity to present today. Thank you all the commissioners and community members who are here today. So we also do have with us, as Sarah was saying, we have in support of the project here with us, Principal Jessica Gorham, representing the Aligheri Montessori School community, and Harvest 2023 participating artists and Eastie resident, Felipe Ortiz. Harvest, just a quick background, is a collaboration of urban farming and public art. Next slide. So through the Harvest Project, students in East Boston who are at public schools and are also engaged in Eastie Farms programs are empowered to share their knowledge through artivism. So we're combining their workshops, getting their hands in soil, learning about pollinators and how to grow and care for plants, side by side with art workshops where they're drawing and painting and participating in storytelling and narrative workshops, sculpture, all about communicating their ideas through art and the emotional way that it can convey important and complex issues. The students' ideas that are expressed in these workshops with the artists are then inspired, they then inspire a series of artworks at the school that are installed by established muralists. So these are some of the project components that we saw these are images from last year, and starting with students getting their hands in the soil, going, all the way through the workshops, participating with artists until we actually install them at the schools and give the students an opportunity to paint with the artists as well. Next slide. So this, just looking at the success of last year's project, here was the Umana Academy before the mural, and here is the after. This is painted by Gleo from Colombia. Next slide. This is the Bradley School, a walkway commonly used as the entrance for the students to the school. And next slide. This was painted by Yenny Create from Boston right here, and she painted this beautiful Together We Grow mural at the school that faces the playground. Next slide. This is the retaining wall at the back of the school facing the street here, facing an intersection, and this is the retaining wall of the school, which was painted by Griswan from Colombia as well. Next slide. Here's some images of the mural as well as some of the students participating in painting butterflies into the mural. Next slide. So Harvest 2023, this year we are collaborating and activating at the Aligheri Montessori School, as well as the Patrick J. Kennedy schools in East Boston. Next slide. We're working, this year we've selected Felipe Ortiz to paint at the Dante Aligheri School, and Tom Bob, who will be painting several smaller activations at the PJK. So it's an invitational process. The Harvest team, the schools, the EC Farm, Harbor Arts, the school community work together to select artists that are the best fit for the school, the thematics, and the project in regards to scheduling, travel, budget, etc. And this allows us not only to create meaningful and lasting public art for the schools within limited resources, it also helps to ensure relevance to the school and the students' workshops. And this year, we were really proud to select Felipe Ortiz as the mural of the Dante Aligheri School and Tom Bob at the PJK. So next slide. So here's some examples of Felipe's past work. Felipe is a resident of East Boston, and as a Colombian American artivist, he has a special connection with many of the students who have a shared experience and heritage. This made him a really excellent fit for the Harvest program this year. Felipe has extensive experience creating and facilitating workshops locally and internationally. And as part of the Harvest project, he hopes to continue to grow the Colombian connection through that collaboration. Next slide. So here are some images of one of the recent workshops. Felipe joined. We did a drawing and coloring workshop with Felipe where the students learned all about the many species of bees that we have in Massachusetts. And I wish I wrote down the number, but I think it's over 300 species of bees that we have. And there are so many more, and they're not just black and yellow. There's many colors. There's green bees. There's bees with a lot of red. There's fluffy bees and less fluffy bees. And there's just so many different kinds. And the students got to, kind of look through and choose one that felt, that they could identify with based on its characteristics and the role that it plays in the environment. And they drew those bees with Felipe. And we also talked about what kind of animals they'd like to see in a mural at their school. One of those was mentioned by many of the students was a hummingbird. The students are very into hummingbirds, and having that incorporated into the mural was one of the requests that the students made as well. And through this project, we're going to give the students, similar to how they supported Gris in his mural painting, we're going to work with the school to paint bees, which is a major theme of the school. So let's take a look at the next slide, which will be the wall that we'll be addressing at the Aligheri School. So this is a wall that's within a courtyard at the school, and it's surrounded by the playground. I should have probably included some photos facing the other way, but here are all the angles of the wall, and these raised beds in front of the wall. These are actually the gardens, the outdoor classroom that the students take care of and grow their plants right at the school. So it's a beautiful opportunity for us to activate the wall that's directly, adorns their garden, their farm at the school. Next slide. So here's a preliminary visual concept that Felipe created. So you can see how Felipe incorporated some of the ideas of the students. So we see here the hummingbird, as well as some flora and fauna that the students were interested in showing, and some of Felipe's signature splashes of the explosive nature series that he's created. We also see in the left-hand side bees coming from a beehive into the rest of the environment, the painted environment that Felipe is creating. So this is where the students will have an opportunity to paint their own bee, and every student can make it theirs a little bit different so they can recognize their bee and remember that they were a part of creating that mural at their school, which will be there to inspire many students in the future. Let's just make sure I didn't forget anything here. Yep. So sorry, you can continue to the next slide. So here are some examples of Tom Bob's work. Tom Bob is an artist from New Bedford, Massachusetts. His work is known around the world for transforming objects, bringing them to life in bright colors, and really putting smiles on people's faces through the way that he sees life in objects, both seen and unseen. So Tom Bob presents an exciting opportunity to activate at the PJK school as they head into a long renovation and construction process. While the school does not have a large wall to offer for a mural, Tom Bob sees life and joy in utilitarian everyday objects all around us, both seen and unseen. And in drawing workshops with Tom Bob, students will reimagine their built environment around them, bringing objects to life with bright colors. So here are some of his past work. Many of these are at schools. The next slide, please. And here's where we start seeing his preliminary concepts for the schools. You can flip through these a little slowly, but I'll just read here a little bit. So these are some of Tom Bob's examples that he'll be working into his drawing workshops for the students as they imagine different possibilities together. So Tom Bob will be transforming a total of 8 objects around the school. And we're working with BPS facilities as well as the engineers and designers of the renovation on the placement locations of these artworks within the school. So these are some of the stuff that's been come up with and will be the likely subject matter to be painted at these. These are things that are kind of found around the school. So the exact location of the radiator in this example, in this photo, it may or may not be this particular radiator, but there are several radiators all around the school. There are several pillars like this around the school. And so where it works with the renovation, we're working with their team to identify spots that will be untouched after the renovation, so that the students' work with Tom Bob is not harmed by the renovation. So that's it for this slide. Next slide. Okay, so just a quick look at the project as a whole. Last year we raised $100,000, which produced 6 weeks of educational programming with the students engaged in the process in the project. It was 3 monumental public installations at 2 schools, fair pay for the artist and team, and we had some leftover seed funding for the continued success of Harvest in 2023. This year we've raised almost $60,000 so far, and we look forward to more collaboration as we continue to grow the program. Next slide. So just to take a look at where we're at on the timeline, here we are in May. So this month, later in the month, throughout this month, students continue their workshops. Their workshops actually have gone back. They started in February, but this year we're already in process of having the students in workshop with Felipe, and later this month we'll begin painting the mural. So we'll also be presenting this at upcoming neighborhood association meetings next week. So the mural painting and celebration will happen at the end of May and first couple of days of June. We're gonna send out more information, invite anyone who wants to join and see the mural installed, meet the students who participated in the project. They've got incredible work to share, and the project will be wrapped up and complete by July with a beautiful video to share with the public. And that's all I think that I have for today. Thank you. And I'm available for questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Matthew. And this is an exciting program. It's great to see some of the ones that were completed already and as part of the presentation.
Thank you.
Let me open it up to commissioners for any questions. And maybe I have a first one, which is Karen or Sarah, what are we looking to vote on here?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Sarah.
No, I was going to say, go ahead. We're looking for a final design approval for both
Okay.
projects.
Okay. So I'll open it up to commissioners, and maybe this one, the reason I think I asked is because this one's a little bit unusual in that there isn't a final design to approve, but there's a kind of process and a track record. And, I think we've done that in the past in other instances.
We do have, just to speak to that, this is actually a little bit different than last year. I mean, Felipe's design is certainly, as ready to approve as I think most, this is essentially the design that Felipe is working on with the students thus far. So I don't think you'll see, a a ton of wild variation from that. And as far as Tom Bob's work, those are the things that we've come up with and presented to the school already. So those are, the school is loving the existing designs. We're gonna have a workshop with the students, so they're involved in coming up with how the bird exactly looks, or how the robot is constructed, or how the animal or the plant is exactly, but it's for the most part subject matter will be
Won't change.
accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right, commissioners, any questions? Or
I just wanted to commend the project, and it's really wonderful engagement with the students, and then being able to create their own fees, and this is really kind of like a really great template for how community engaged projects need to progress. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Okay,
Thank you.
other commissioner comments or questions? Hearing none, we can open it up to community questions. I think that there's one, Sebastian.
Hello, all. My name is Sebastian, and I am the East Boston liaison for City Councilor Gabriela Coletta. I just wanted to come on in really quick and show the support for this project on behalf of the councilor, as Matthew is a person that we really appreciate, and his work is really valued in East Boston. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sebastian. Jessica?
Hi, I'm the proud principal of the Aligheri Montessori, and I just wanted to be here to say thank you all so much for your work on behalf of Boston's art community, and to thank the Harbor Arts program and Felipe Ortiz, who've already been so wonderful with our students. As a Montessori school, the connection to the environment is so important, and the connection to the community and community activism. So this project has really served all of those areas for us. One of our students did a whole presentation on the need for more public art in East Boston, and we were able to connect him with Matt and with Felipe, and they were able to do a virtual tour of the murals in East Boston, which was super impactful for this student. And the students are all feeling very proud and very excited for the project to come. So thank you all so much for your role in this, and a special thank you to Matt and to Felipe. It's been wonderful.
Great, thank you, Jessica. Next up, Richard Heath.
Yes, thank you. How many of the artwork at the P.J. Kennedy School by Tom Bob will be available to be seen by the public from a public street or the public playground?
So probably I would say there is at least one, which you can see in the sketch. If we could back up a little bit, I can share that with you. So up, we passed it right there. So there's this elephant on the side of the building where they have these meters, and there won't be any painting of the actual equipment there. So he just kind of makes it, he matches the color of the equipment and makes it look like it's part of the elephant's trunk. But that's one that will for sure be on the exterior of the school. We are, looking at, in terms of the placement of these concepts, we're looking with the designers to make sure that we do have some of this outdoors, and hopefully we'll have at least something else as well in addition to the elephant, but we'll at least have that, and we're really excited about it. And that's right there, it's pretty close to a very busy corner of the street, so we'll get a lot of foot traffic going by and seeing it. And it's small, but I think it's a really impactful transformation of something that right now is so utilitarian.
Okay, thank you. Richard, any follow-up comment?
No, that's great. I just love this work. I love the cartoon work. It's just that those I live in JP, and so it'd be great to be going over to the Aligheri school to see that one. That looks wonderful. I just wanted to, I didn't want to go in during school hours to wander around, but I'll look for the elephant. Thanks a lot.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah, and Felipe's mural at the Aligheri School will also, it's facing the playground, and the playground is public, so you can definitely come and see this mural as well.
Well, I look forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone for your comments. Let's see if someone would like to make a motion.
Mark, I can do that.
Great, John.
I move that we accept final design for the Harvest Murals program at Dante, Aligheri, and PJK schools, as brought to us by Harbor Arts.
My second.
Great, thank you for seconding, Kim. I will read off the list of commissioners. Please say yes if you agree with the motion. Camilo?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, so the motion passes. Thank you so much, Matthew, for bringing this in and for keeping this work going.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, our next item of business is turning it back to Karen to talk about our chair and vice chair elections. Karen?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so you can see the language on the screen here that's taken from our ordinance. When we had updated it some years ago, we wanted to create some sort of process to make sure that the responsibilities and the additional time that the chairs and vice chairs are putting in is able to rotate through the commission. So we put in that, like, on May 1st, we'd go over and have a conversation. It's been some time since we've done that, and I do really want to acknowledge that both Mark and Ikwa have been volunteering their time and have led us through a lot of important conversations in the last few years, including many important new commissions like the Embrace, as well as other major changes to our existing collection, and that they're both coming up on 10 years of service. And it seems especially important now that we elect a new chair and vice chair. Again, if not today, then soon, so that we can have some kind of continuity before they leave the commission. And yeah, according to our bylaws, which you can see in the policy doc, which is available publicly, and I think Sarah might be adding a link to the chat. Yeah, thanks, Sarah. We do need to do that through election. And so, I'd just love to pass it back to you and open up to conversation if you're open to it. But again, I thought it would be helpful to at least start the conversation today. Although what we wrote in the ordinance was, it was like on or soon after May 1st.
Yeah, and soon is a very legally slippery term. So
sure.
I just would like to say before we begin the conversation that I didn't necessarily want to be chair. It wasn't like something on my list of to-dos in life, but I kind of stepped into it. And I have to say, I'm very thankful that I did. I think it brought a lot of meaning. And as Karen said, we went through some really important discussions, and especially the emancipation group, to me, was an incredibly an amazing moment in Boston's history to be a part of. And I just felt so proud of our community, the way it discussed that issue. And so I think the chair and vice chair roles are just a way to participate in civic life that brings, a slight bit more responsibility than as a commissioner, but also brings some level of meaning and something rewarding in the same time. So I think we could open it up to the conversation. I have had a conversation with John Andres about him being interested. So I don't know, John, do you want to say a word or two about your own interest?
I would say, much like Mark, he approached me, had a conversation, and I was like, do I have time for this? But in the conversation, I think Mark spoke very highly of both being on the commission for a number of years and then stepping into this role and how valuable and meaningful it felt for him. So I'm very happy and excited to take on the chair role if you all choose to vote for me. So I would put myself forward humbly.
Great, John. I will also just say that I think Karen's suggesting that we do this soon, this month or next month. Aqua and I both were sworn in and in the same room at the same time in 2013, I guess, because we're coming up on our 10 years, 5-year cycle followed by a second 5-year cycle. So July is technically the end of our 10 years. Sometimes our replacements might take a little bit longer than that, but we feel like it would be very helpful to have a couple of meetings where we're still around to ask questions of any new leadership. And I could imagine us, deciding to table this a month if we want to, or electing a chair and not a vice chair, or, there's lots of different ways that we could potentially handle this, depending on if there's other interests. So other commissioners who want to make a comment or have a thought or put their hat in the ring, and remember, we do have 2 positions.
I can say I've had conversations with Aqua about her experience as the vice chair, and the potential of stepping into a vice chair position would be something that would be interesting to me. A consideration is the diversity of the individuals who are represented on the commission, and individuals who are in leadership roles would be a consideration for me as we consider both the vice chair and the chair roles. So that's just, something to think about, and that's on my mind as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that question too. It's been great to work with Aqua and to have 2 different sort of perspectives in the leadership at the same time. Other commissioner comments? I know Bob has told me that he would not like to be on the leadership, so he has some personal reasons, but would not like to do that. He remains enthusiastically a commissioner, but doesn't want to take a leadership role. And I believe, Camilo, you would be another person who could consider it. I know that Cara and Michael are not, I don't believe either of you are allowed to hold these roles. And then Kim, I believe, would be another candidate, but I know, Kim, you maybe have some issues as well.
Yeah, I would be more interested in the vice chair versus the chair, but again, diversity issues, I'm wondering, just to keep it open. But then also, I was wondering, are there any descriptions, or quote unquote job description for these positions that can be shared? Because I can't say I recall ever seeing that.
I don't know that I ever got one. I think that what happened is that the previous chair talked to me about what the experience was like and what the demands were. And I think essentially the main demand, in addition to managing the meetings, is there's an agenda-based meeting that happens a week before, where the chair, vice chair, and Karen have a conversation just to make sure that before we post the agenda that the chair and vice chair have reviewed it and are aware of it. So that's that's sort of the big additional time commitment. There are certain other things that may come up. You as a commissioner might be on a selection group. As a chair, you might be involved in some of those same kinds of things the way you would as a commissioner. But the main difference in terms of time commitment is that additional planning meeting that typically comes up. Karen, anything else you want to add into that?
No, that seems right. I do want to say, like, if you all want to take time and think about it, we can vote next month, and I can send you more information, or I can have conversations with each of you if it's helpful. But it's really up to you all. But I'm happy to provide more content, and also just to say it's a year. We can vote again in a year. I know Mark and Aqua have put in a lot of time, but I think we can return to this later as well if you do it and you feel like it's too much.
Yeah, and sometimes I would suggest that we be a faster rotation.
Yeah.
So it could be a kind of every year or every other year that people, I mean, it doesn't have to be formalized like that, but I just imagine Aqua and I sort of held on to the position for a long time because there were a lot of new commissioners. And so, I think it doesn't have to be that long a commitment. It would be kind of nice, let's say, if Camilo, you wanted to be in the vice chair, and then Brian wanted to take the year after, and then there might be some new commissioners replacing us who bring other diverse perspectives, so we could maintain that diversity on the leadership positions.
I have
Which
to.
sounds realistic.
Oh, go ahead, Camilo.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say I have to run to another meeting, but I think it's a good idea for folks to have, if not a job description, maybe just a conversation about what else is involved. So I think, Karen, if you're able to have conversations with folks, I think that's helpful. But I do like, Mark, what you're saying about like a more frequent rotation also. I don't think there's any reason for people to feel like they have to be locked into a decade-long commitment, although we appreciate people who do that. So that's just my 2 cents.
Great. So should we formally agree to vote at the next meeting on this? And that'll give us a chance to have a conversation with, sounds like John's interested in the chair position. Nobody else has expressed interest in that position. So maybe John's a shoo-in candidate, but we could have a conversation with both Brian and Camilo and just talk about both of your interests in it and determine if one or the other would like to be a candidate this cycle, and then maybe the other becomes a candidate next cycle. All right. So I'm happy to talk to you as well. Karen, I know, is traveling for just a couple days, but you can reach out to me and we can have a conversation about those 2 positions. And then I'm sure Aqua would be happy to talk. I never actually served as vice chair. Because Aqua didn't want to be chair, I just became chair. So typically we would think it'd be, you'd start as vice chair and then become chair for a year and that sort of thing. But I'm happy to talk about the role of just the leadership role more generally. I'll reach out to both of you and have that conversation. Okay, do we want to make a motion, Karen, just to postpone the vote, or do we not need to do that, you think?
I don't think we need to do that.
Soon as that temporary word, so soon as June.
We can just put it on the agenda for June.
Okay, great. All right.
I have a somewhat of a related question. I know there's been conversations and questions by myself and some other commissioners about the possibility of expanding the kinds of organizations that nominate individuals to serve on the commission. And I have no idea what that process looks like. Is that an option? And has that ever been done before? Or how would that work?
It has been done. It's done through legislation. And that's something that I think we can go over, but it's done through the mayor's office and legislation at the state. So it's done through a home rule petition at the state. So we don't do it ourselves. That's something that will happen through the mayor's office. And that is, so when I first started, the makeup of the commission was very different. I think there were 5 commissioners, and Neither the Gardner nor the ICA were on here. We didn't have the ex officio. Did we have? Yeah, we didn't have the ex officio position from the BPA. And we didn't have the special appointee by the mayor either. So we went from 5 to 9 members. And we used to have the Copley Society, which we removed. The ICA actually came later. I'm sorry. So it was, there were 2 special positions, and then the ICA was added to the more recent one. So there is a way to do it. I'll say it's a little bit cumbersome, but it is something that, you know, we can look at. And I think we've had some conversations, and one of the things I had thought would be nice is if we go through the consultancy that we have, in particular the Indigenous Public Art and Cultural Spaces one, who we have 2 consultants looking at our policies and processes, and maybe reflecting on their input would be helpful as we engage in those conversations. But I can't speak to what the mayor's agenda
Could we
of the
request
legislature is.
Is that how the process would typically work? Like we would sort of,
Yeah, I mean, back when I first started, that's what happened, that I made the proposal to the mayor. And then I think in the last time it was the mayor's office who put it forward. And I think so once we're ready, again, I would just recommend that we go through that process.
how would we initiate that process? I mean,
Sorry, I meant working with the consultants and getting
that's what I mean.
recommendations.
Yeah, so are the consultants are not yet on board, or are they?
They were finalizing some paperwork. They did some initial work, and they're we're doing some additional paperwork, and they're in the process of doing research. So it's a 2-year consultancy where 1 year was going to be spent doing research and the second year on implementation.
Okay, so you're recommending that we wait some number of months before we get the feedback from them.
But that's specifically for Indigenous people's institutions?
That is, no, it's looking at our processes generally. So we asked them to look at all our frameworks.
So, and question, I mean, so basically when, for example, the ICA was added or the Gardner, that was nominated by us, that we suggested this to the mayor's office and then went to legislation?
Technically, you know, when the first run was done, I made some suggestions to the mayor at the time, and there was a little bit of a back and forth before we finalized it. And then the second time, there was another there was a recommendation from the mayor's policy office.
So generally, though, we should be making a recommendation at some point, and we could wait on. I mean, somebody has to start this, yes, right? Like the fire.
Yes. So this is something in the past that's come from either our office that I've done when we were a different version, or the policy office has done. It hasn't in the past been the commission itself, but it certainly has been coming up through our conversations. And again, since this was something we in particular were really interested in those consultants to work on, I do think it's a pretty complex question. I would suggest at least getting those before that. And I think the question will be like whether it's an expansion of the board or is it a replacement, which we did like the first time we did it during my tenure in this position. It was a replacement, and it was a replacement and expansion. So we've removed organizations and added some. So I think the question would also be like, if we're going to remove an organization, like what conversations do we have with them first as well?
Okay, great. It sounds like an agenda item for a new president in a few months. Or a new chair, I mean. And generally, I might also recommend, it comes up quite often, is the presence of some of our art policies that maybe we want to look at as a group, or the generation following AQA and me will want to look at some point, just more broadly. including
Yeah.
being more specific about what we allow with sponsors on short-term lists and that kind of thing. Like we could probably be more precise about that. And then, you know, then have fewer questions that come up when these presentations happen.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful. And I think we would also probably want to do a better job of sort of informing and updating you on what our procurement processes are like. And sort of more of the behind the scenes things. I think we could do a better job of making that a little bit more visible to you.
Great. Right, some exciting things ahead. I think that is our final, is that, am I correct? Is that our final? Yes, so our final order of business tonight will be adjournment. Thank you, everyone. I hope you get to go outside. It's incredible out right now. And let's see, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting
Thank you.
today for May 9th, 2023.
Very precise. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, John, for the second. If you're in favor of the motion, please say yes when I call your name. Camilo?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Cara may have left already. Brian?
Yes.
And Kim?
Yes.
Okay, the motion, and I'm a yes as well, so the motion passes. Thank you, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you in a month.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.